May 31st, 2006, Stockholm. A teenager's bedroom server is about to become the most hunted machine on Earth. That server hosts the Pirate Bay, a site responsible for bleeding Hollywood studios of $30 billion, crippling music labels, and making a mockery of international copyright law. 53 armed police officers storm the data center at dawn, seizing every server, every cable, every piece of hardware in what should be the death blow. By noon, Swedish prosecutors are holding victory press conferences. Hollywood executives are toasting their win. The world's most notorious piracy empire, used by 25 million people daily, is finally dead. But 72 hours later, the Pirate Bay blinks back online as if nothing happened. Its homepage now mocks them, with a pirate ship firing cannonballs at Hollywood's sign. Here's what terrifies every government and corporation watching. The site didn't just survive, it became impossible to kill. They seized every physical server, arrested the founders, and it still came back. If you can't destroy this, you can't control the internet. How did 3 Swedish hackers build something unkillable? And what did they understand about the internet's true nature that billion-dollar corporations didn't? Well, that's what we're diving into tonight. So sit back, get comfortable, and if you're enjoying this, let me know where you're listening from in the comments. There are more stories like this waiting for you if you subscribe. This story is about how something built in a teenager's bedroom became truly impossible to kill. And I do mean impossible. They seized every server, arrested the founders, mobilized armed police officers across 10 locations in a coordinated dawn raid that should have ended everything. But 72 hours later, the site blinked back online as if nothing had happened. Not wounded, not diminished, stronger. To understand how something becomes unkillable, we need to start with the smell of overheating electronics and a 19-year-old sitting cross-legged on his bedroom floor. Stockholm, 2001. Gottfrid Svartholm watches cables snake across the carpet from a jury-rigged server tucked under his bed. The machine hums constantly, a white noise his parents have stopped complaining about because they don't quite understand what he's doing anyway. The room smells like warm electronics and instant ramen. There's a poster of the Linux penguin on one wall, books about cryptography stacked precariously on a desk that hasn't seen daylight in weeks because the curtains stay drawn to keep the glare off his monitor. He's shaggy-haired, thin, with a skeptical smile that appears whenever anyone suggests there might be rules he should follow. His fingers move across the keyboard with the kind of unconscious fluidity that comes from spending more time in terminal windows than in conversation. His online handle is Anna Carter, a name pulled from obscure mythology that will later appear in court documents and Interpol notices, and whispered conversations in hacker forums around the world. He's good with code, better than good. The kind of good where other programmers look at his work and feel something between admiration and inadequacy. When he writes a function, it's elegant, minimal, does exactly what it needs to do and nothing more. But in 2001, he's just a teenager with a server under his bed and a growing fascination with the idea that information wants to be free. Not as a slogan, as an engineering problem. The server under his bed runs hot. You can feel the warmth radiating from it if you sit on the floor next to it, which Gottfrid does for hours at a time, laptop balanced on his knees, monitoring traffic logs and tweaking configurations. Sometimes the fan whines when the load spikes. Sometimes his mother knocks on the door, asking if he's eaten anything today. Usually he hasn't. By 2003, he's connected with 2 others who think the same way. Fredrik, who goes by Tiamo online, and Peter Sunder, who'll eventually become the public face of everything. They're all part of Pirate BitTorrent, an anti-copyright collective operating from a Stockholm warehouse. The space is cluttered with mismatched furniture salvaged from sidewalks. There's a couch with springs poking through the cushions where people crash after all-night coding sessions. The walls are covered in graffiti art and printouts of cease and desist letters they've received, displayed like hunting trophies. The collective's mission is straightforward. Make file sharing frictionless. No gatekeepers, no apologies, and critically, no tracking logs. They meet in that warehouse on cold Stockholm evenings, breath visible in the unheated space, laptops glowing in the dim light, discussing philosophy and protocols in equal measure. They wire together a BitTorrent tracker as a side project. Just an experiment, really. A way to coordinate file sharing across multiple computers without any central authority controlling the flow. Gottfrid's bedroom server becomes the beating heart of this experiment. The tracker software he writes is elegant in its simplicity. It doesn't store files. It just tells your computer where to find the pieces of files that other computers are sharing. The thing catches fire faster than any of them predicted. By late 2004, their hobby project has a name, the Pirate Bay, and 40,000 users swapping everything from open-source Linux distributions to Hollywood's latest releases. Every torrent downloaded passes through Gottfrid's machine. The bandwidth bills start making his parents nervous. You can imagine the conversation. "Gottfrid, what exactly are you doing with the internet connection? The bill says we used more bandwidth this month than the entire neighborhood." Fredrik suggests they need commercial hosting fast. So they launch PRQ, a hosting company with one rule: we host anything, we keep zero logs. It's the natural extension of their philosophy. If information wants to be free, then the infrastructure supporting that freedom needs to be bulletproof. While other hosting companies fold under legal pressure, PRQ wears takedown notices like merit badges. The New York Times will later describe them as highly secure, no questions asked operators, with considerable expertise in withstanding legal attacks. Which is corporate journalism's way of saying, these guys will host your controversial content and dare you to do something about it. The dares pile up quickly. February 2004. DreamWorks attorneys send a cease and desist demanding removal of Shrek 2 torrents. Now, most companies would comply immediately, issue a statement about respecting intellectual property rights, remove the content quietly, and hope the whole thing goes away. Gottfrid's response becomes internet folklore. He writes back, "Sweden is not a state in the United States of America. For your information, no Swedish law is being violated." Then he calls the Hollywood lawyers morons and suggests they perform an anatomically creative act with retractable batons. He signs off, "Go fuck yourself, polite as usual, Anakata." Instead of keeping this private, the Pirate Bay posts the entire exchange on their homepage. The letter goes viral. Traffic to the site triples overnight. Every legal threat becomes free advertising for their outlaw brand. Other companies send cease and desists. Each one gets posted publicly with increasingly sarcastic margin notes. Users start waiting for the next takedown notice like it's appointment television. By mid-2005, the Pirate Bay is managing traffic that would make most tech startups envious. 25 million people worldwide use it daily. The site runs on code Gottfrid writes mostly alone, including a custom tracker called Hypercube that coordinates file sharing across millions of machines simultaneously. The interface stays deliberately bare. A search bar, a pirate ship logo, an ocean of content. Under that simplicity, Gottfrid is architecting something approaching digital immortality. Every new user makes the network harder to destroy. Every shared file creates redundancy. It's not a website anymore, not in the traditional sense. It's a living organism, growing faster than anyone can regulate it. The files aren't stored on Pirate Bay's servers. They're scattered across millions of personal computers worldwide. The tracker just coordinates the chaos. You can see why this would terrify anyone who makes money from controlling distribution. The Motion Picture Association of America watches this growth with mounting fury. Their strategy until now has been suing individual downloaders, taking grandmothers and college students to court for sharing a dozen songs. It's not working. For every person they sue, 1,000 more start sharing files. The real target, they realize, is the infrastructure making it all possible. And that infrastructure has a home address in Sweden. By early 2006, MPAA lobbyists are working Swedish diplomatic channels hard. Emails fly between Hollywood and Stockholm. Pressure builds. Swedish authorities, normally hands-off about internet regulation, start feeling heat from across the Atlantic. The American entertainment industry employs a lot of people and generates a lot of tax revenue. When Hollywood calls your embassy, ministers tend to answer. The Swedish government wants this problem gone. May 2006. Gottfrid's phone vibrates with a warning from a contact inside Sweden's telecom industry. Police are mobilizing. He calls Fredrik immediately. They've wargamed this scenario for months. Their disaster recovery plan is simple. Database backups sit encrypted on servers in the Netherlands, ready to deploy. If the main infrastructure falls, they'll rebuild before Swedish TV finishes the evening news. Gottfrid has spent 2 years making sure the site's entire existence can fit on a thumb drive and resurrect anywhere with electricity and bandwidth. The actual servers don't matter. The community matters. The code matters. The database of torrent links matters. Everything else is just replaceable hardware. Now, at dawn on May 31st, that preparation is about to be tested by 53 armed officers. The raid is coming in hours. But here's what nobody in law enforcement understands yet. They're about to seize an empty fortress. The walls look impressive, the servers are expensive, but the data, the only thing that actually matters, is already halfway to Amsterdam. May 31st, 2006, 5:47 a.m. The first door goes down in Rinkeby, a Stockholm suburb where a bandwidth provider houses the Pirate Bay's primary servers. The sound of splintering wood echoes through the pre-dawn quiet. Officers move in synchronized teams, boots heavy on concrete floors. 10 locations hit simultaneously across the city. You can picture it. The careful planning, the pre-dawn briefings in fluorescent-lit rooms, officers drinking bad coffee from paper cups, going over blueprints and arrest protocols. The satisfaction of finally executing a warrant everyone's been waiting for. In the server room, the air conditioning hums steadily, keeping the temperature at exactly 18 degrees Celsius. The servers blink with green and amber LEDs, unaware that their existence is about to be interrupted. Metal racks get unplugged mid-operation, fans winding down with a descending whine. Hard drives slide into evidence bags, each one labelled with meticulous handwriting. Technicians in the building stand frozen, hands raised, still holding coffee mugs or screwdrivers, as police haul out equipment on wheeled dollies. The sound of metal on metal, the click of handcuffs. Gottfrid Svartholm and Fredrik Ney are cuffed and driven to separate interrogation rooms. Gottfrid sits in a grey room with a metal table bolted to the floor, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. He says nothing, just watches the detective across from him with that same skeptical smile. The detective asks questions. Gottfrid asks for his lawyer. The conversation goes nowhere. The operation unfolds with military precision. By 11 a.m., Swedish television is running breaking news. Notorious piracy website shut down. The police spokesperson stands at a podium, reading from prepared remarks, trying not to look too satisfied. Behind him, a table displays seized equipment, like artifacts from a crime scene. The visuals are perfect for the evening news. Rows of seized servers stacked like trophies. Officers in tactical gear. The message is clear. The law wins. On forums worldwide, panic spreads. Users refresh the Pirate Bay's URL over and over, watching their browsers return error messages. The familiar pirate ship logo is gone. Just blank white space or a timeout message. Some users report it to each other in disbelief, typing in all caps. They actually did it! The bay is down! In Stockholm, hundreds rally in Sergelstorg by mid-afternoon, waving pirate flags they've stitched together from black fabric and white skull and crossbones stencils. The crowd chants. Some carry signs. Information wants to be free. You can't stop the signal. But it looks, for a moment, like Hollywood scored a clean knockout. The site is actually down. The servers are photographed and catalogued in evidence rooms. The founders are in handcuffs. This is supposed to be the end of the story. MPAA representatives issue statements congratulating Swedish authorities on their decisive action against digital theft. Rights holders calculate lost revenue they believe will now return. The biggest piracy site in the world is offline. The servers are in police custody. The founders are in handcuffs. But nobody is counting on what happens next. June 2nd, 2006. Just after midnight. Whispers circulate on IRC channels and forums. Someone posts a screenshot. The site is back. Users refresh their browsers, half expecting it to be a prank, some clever Photoshop job. But the homepage loads. Really loads. The pirate ship logo now has a new detail. It's firing cannonballs at a hillside sign labelled Hollywood. Above the logo, a new tagline, the galaxy's most resilient BitTorrent site. The defiance is palpable even through a computer screen. In the raid's confusion, while police were photographing evidence and prosecutors were preparing victory statements, Gottfrid's team had executed their contingency plan flawlessly. They migrated the complete database to servers in Amsterdam, rerouted DNS, brought everything online in 72 hours. The police seized the hardware. They got the expensive servers, the cables, the cooling systems, the switches. But they couldn't touch the community or the code that actually mattered. The data was already gone before the first door came down. It's the digital equivalent of raiding a library and seizing the building, while the librarians escape with backup copies of every book on microfilm. You got the architecture, you missed the information. Peter Sunder, the site's public face, holds a press conference from his Stockholm apartment. His living room becomes an impromptu media centre. Reporters crowd around his laptop, cameras jostling for position, cables snaking across the floor. The space smells like cigarette smoke and nervous energy. He's grinning, looking almost euphoric. The downtime wasn't fear, he explains. We were scaling up infrastructure to handle all the new traffic you journalists just sent us. Behind him on the wall, you can see a hand-drawn poster, a pirate flag with the words, "You can't sink what doesn't float." He's not exaggerating. The raid has become the greatest advertising campaign in Pirate Bay history. Everyone who vaguely knew about the site is now intensely curious. What kind of website comes back from a police raid in 3 days? Traffic explodes, doubling, then tripling pre-raid numbers. The site crashes repeatedly from surge load, not police action. Error messages from too many simultaneous connections, not from seized hardware. Gottfrid and Fredrik work 20-hour shifts stabilizing servers, adding capacity, routing traffic through multiple data centers. They communicate in terse messages on encrypted channels. Need more bandwidth in Amsterdam, spinning up mirrors in Romania. DNS propagating, give it 10 minutes. The work is technical and exhausting. Coffee cups accumulate. Sleep becomes optional. But the site stays up. Hollywood tried to kill them and accidentally made them invincible. Every news article about the raid includes the URL. Every television segment drives more traffic. The Swedish Evening News runs a piece explaining what BitTorrent is, complete with helpful graphics showing how file sharing works. It's free advertising worth millions. Behind the scenes, they're hardening the operation for the next assault. Multiple mirror sites go live across Europe and Asia. The codebase gets modularized, designed to deploy on any server in any country within hours. They distribute backup copies to trusted administrators in 6 nations. When a Swedish journalist asks how they'll survive the next raid, Fredrik doesn't hesitate. "We have plans in other countries. We're not stupid." The swagger is earned. They're treating law enforcement as just another network problem to root around. The internet interprets censorship as damage and roots around it. That's not a slogan. It's their actual engineering philosophy made manifest. Swedish prosecutors, embarrassed, double down. They comb through seized evidence, building a criminal case. Meanwhile, the Pirate Bay posts the actual police warrant on their homepage, with sarcastic margin notes in the margins. "Lol. Good luck with that. Try harder." The trolling is relentless. Users send donations, not huge amounts individually, but enough collectively to cover hosting costs, and then some. Traffic climbs to 30 million visits daily. What started under Gottfrid's bed now runs on infrastructure spanning 3 continents. The raid meant to destroy them has transformed the Pirate Bay into a global phenomenon. In Los Angeles, New York, and London, executives are livid. If a sovereign nation's police can't keep a piracy site down for even 3 days, what does that mean for control of the internet? What does it mean for copyright enforcement? What does it mean for their entire business model? Boardrooms fill with lawyers drafting new strategies. Political pressure intensifies. New laws get proposed in parliaments and congresses. The hunters are regrouping, and this time they're targeting the people, not the servers. A trial is coming that will decide more than just the fate of 3 Swedish hackers. It will test whether the old rules of copyright can survive the age of decentralized networks. The Pirate Bay survived the raid, but now they face something harder to dodge. A courtroom designed to make examples of pirates. February 16th, 2009, Stockholm District Court. The morning air is cold enough to see your breath. 4 men sit at the defense table in a courtroom. Gottfrid, pale and smirking, wearing a hoodie under a blazer that looks borrowed. Fredrik, arms crossed, looking vaguely amused like he's watching a play he already knows the ending to. Peter Sunder tweeting the proceedings in real time to his 100,000 followers, phone hidden under the table. And Carl Lundström, an older businessman who bankrolled early infrastructure, looking significantly less comfortable than the others, wearing an expensive suit that doesn't quite fit the revolutionary aesthetic. They dub it the Spectral, a trial designed to be spectacle. They look less like criminals and more like a band showing up for a gig they know will be recorded for posterity. The defense table is cluttered with laptops and legal pads and water bottles with the labels peeled off. The prosecution sits across the aisle, 3 lawyers in dark suits with identical briefcases, looking like they've never laughed at a meme in their lives. They frame them as criminal masterminds who facilitated millions of copyright violations and earned millions in advertising revenue. They present charts and graphs projected on a screen at the front of the courtroom. Numbers that seem impossibly large. $30 billion in damages, 25 million daily users, millions of copyrighted files distributed. The lawyer's voice is measured, serious, carrying the weight of representing billion-dollar corporations. The defense argues that Pirate Bay was perfectly legal under Swedish law. An index, not a host. They never stored copyrighted files, only links to torrent files hosted elsewhere. It's like prosecuting a search engine for indexing content it doesn't control. Google links to pirated content every day. Should we arrest Larry Page? Protesters in pirate hats rally outside. You can hear them through the windows sometimes, chanting in Swedish. Inside, every seat is filled with journalists from 30 countries. Some take notes by hand in spiral notebooks. Others type furiously on laptops. This isn't just a trial, it's a referendum on the future of the internet. The Associated Press has a live feed. The BBC sent a correspondent. Even Japanese television is here. The proceedings swing between technical minutiae and philosophical warfare. A prosecutor attempts to explain BitTorrent technology and mangles the details so badly that Gottfrid interrupts from the defense table to correct him. That's not how peer-to-peer protocols work, he says, his voice carrying across the quiet courtroom. Laughter ripples through the gallery. Even some of the journalists are smiling. The judge has to restore order, tapping his gavel twice. Entertainment industry lawyers present elaborate charts claiming billions in damages. They bring in expert witnesses who testify about lost revenue. A man from the Motion Picture Association explains, with visible frustration, how his industry has been decimated. His voice cracks slightly when he talks about job losses. The defense attorney on cross-examination asks him how much money his organization spent lobbying for stricter copyright laws. The witness doesn't have an exact figure. User letters flood the court, describing how the Pirate Bay gave them access to culture they couldn't otherwise afford. Documentaries about climate change that no distributor bothered releasing in their country. Textbooks for engineering courses that cost $300 new. Rare films from the 1960s that no distributor bothers releasing anymore because the market is too small. Obscure music from bands that broke up decades ago, never released on streaming services, never reissued on vinyl. One letter, read aloud by the defense, is from a student in Thailand who used the Pirate Bay to download medical textbooks he couldn't afford. He's now a practicing doctor. Should he not have saved those lives because he couldn't pay for the textbooks? The prosecutor objects. The judge sustains. The letter is stricken from the record. But everyone heard it. The judge asks pointed questions about profit motives. The defense points out that advertising revenue barely covered hosting costs. The site ran more on principle than profit. Peter Sunder blogs the entire proceeding, turning the trial into a daily serial. His readers follow along like it's appointment television. April 17th, 2009. Judgment Day. The courtroom is standing room only. People arrived hours early to secure seats. Cameras line the back wall, their red recording lights blinking. The air is thick with anticipation. The judge enters and everyone rises. The sound of chairs scraping against the floor. Then, silence. The judge reads the verdict with measured gravitas. His voice is steady, emotionless, reading from prepared text. The words hang in the air. Guilty on all counts of assisting copyright infringement. You can feel the reaction ripple through the room, even though it's mostly silent. A collective intake of breath. Someone in the gallery whispers, "Fuck," quietly enough that the judge doesn't hear. Each defendant receives 1 year in prison. Collectively, they owe 30 million Swedish krona, roughly $3.6 million. The judge's tone is stern, clearly intended to send a message to anyone watching. This is what happens when you challenge copyright law. This is what happens when you think you can operate outside the system. Within minutes, literally minutes, before some of the journalists have even filed their stories, the Pirate Bay's homepage updates. The logo now shows a tape-mouthed Mickey Mouse, a silent protest against what they call Disney-backed censorship. Someone watching from a laptop in the back of the courtroom shows their neighbor the screen. The update is already live. They're trolling the court in real time. Peter Sunder tells reporters the sentence is bicycle locking, meaningless punishment for a victimless crime. It's the kind of defiance that makes great copy, but doesn't change the verdict. Gottfrid is notably absent when the verdict is read. That absence is foreshadowing. Appeals begin immediately. Under Swedish law, convictions aren't final until appeals exhaust. Nobody goes to prison yet. There's time to prepare, time to think, time to consider whether it's worth staying in a country that just convicted you. November 2010. The appeals court delivers a mixed ruling. Prison terms get slightly reduced for some defendants, but damages skyrocket to 46 million kroner, over $7 million. It's an impossible sum for 4 guys in their 20s. You can't squeeze blood from a stone, Peter Sunder writes on his blog, pledging that not a single krona will be voluntarily paid. Sweden's Supreme Court refuses to hear further appeals in 2011. The sentences are now final and enforceable. Time to surrender and serve the time. Time to face the consequences. When authorities arrive to collect the defendants, one is missing. Gottfrid has vanished. Officially, he missed his appeal hearing due to illness. Unofficially, Swedish media reports he's fled to Cambodia. Fredrik relocates to Laos with his wife, settling into a quiet life in Vientiane. Peter Sunder eventually turns himself in after a farewell tour speaking at hacker conferences. Carl Lundström serves his brief term under house arrest. But Gottfrid, the architect, the coder, the engineer who built the machine, he's gone completely dark. Interpol red notices go out. Swedish diplomats contact Southeast Asian governments. How do you arrest a ghost who lives on encrypted communication and moves through countries without extradition treaties? Months pass. Occasional sightings surface. A Swedish expat claims they saw Gottfrid at a Phnom Penh internet cafe, hunched over a ThinkPad. WikiLeaks later acknowledges Svartholm helped build infrastructure for their 2010 cable leaks, though they're vague about the details. He's living exactly like the ideology he coded. Stateless, mobile, impossible to pin down. The Pirate Bay, meanwhile, refuses to die with its founders. In 2012, the site makes a radical evolution. It abandons torrent files entirely, switching to magnet links. Understanding the difference matters here. A torrent file is a physical thing, a small file stored on a server that you download. It's a target, something police can seize or courts can order removed. A magnet link is just a text string, a cryptographic hash. It's mathematics. You can't confiscate an equation. No torrent files means less legal surface area to attack, more resilience built into the very architecture. The site's blog announces the change makes the Pirate Bay leaner and nearly impossible to target. They're not wrong. They also release a compressed backup of the entire site database, just a few gigabytes. Any user can download it and spin up a clone in minutes. The site has become a distributed organism, designed to survive even if every original server burns. By late 2011, traffic to the Pirate Bay remains steady at record highs. The convictions didn't slow it. The raids didn't stop it. Users treat the site as if the legal drama is happening in a parallel universe. Gottfrid's creation has outgrown him. It doesn't need its founders to survive anymore. But Gottfrid's personal story is about to take a darker turn. The Swedish government isn't finished with him, and neither are the Danes. New charges are coming that go far beyond copyright infringement. These charges involve government databases, stolen identities, and allegations that will reframe Gottfrid Svartholm from copyright rebel to genuine threat. In a humid apartment in Phnom Penh, a fugitive hears footsteps in the hallway. August 30th, 2012, Cambodia. A joint task force, Swedish officials and Cambodian police, moves on a waterfront apartment in the capital. The door splinters. Inside, they find a bearded 27-year-old hunched over a laptop, surrounded by empty energy drink cans and takeout containers. Gottfrid Svartholm is arrested without resistance. Within 72 hours, he's on a flight back to Stockholm, deported at Sweden's urgent request. The pirate who eluded a copyright conviction for 16 months is now in custody to serve his 1-year Pirate Bay sentence. But Swedish prosecutors have bigger plans. They suspect his time off-grid wasn't just hiding. They believe he was hacking. New charges hit before he even finishes processing into prison. Unauthorized access to Swedish government databases, attempted bank fraud. Investigators allege that between 2010 and 2012, while Gottfrid was supposedly a fugitive lying low, someone using his computers breached servers at Logica, an IT contractor managing Sweden's tax authority systems. The intrusion accessed national tax IDs for thousands of Swedes, attempted to issue fraudulent driver's licenses. Even more audacious, evidence suggests an attempt to penetrate Nordea bank systems and initiate unauthorized transfers. The narrative shifts. Gottfrid isn't just a copyright rebel anymore. He's being framed as a black hat hacker threatening state infrastructure. Gottfrid denies everything. His defense is technical and specific. His laptop was compromised by unknown parties who used it as a proxy. "I was a puppet," he tells his lawyer, presenting forensic evidence that malware was found on his machine. Someone remote-controlled his computer to conduct attacks while he was in Cambodia. It's plausible. Security researchers confirm his system was infected. But prosecutors argue he's sophisticated enough to have staged that infection himself. It's the perfect defense for a hacker of his caliber, they say. Make it look like someone else did it. The trial in 2013 is technical, dense, and divided. The courtroom is colder this time. Different building, different judge. The proceedings drag on for weeks. Expert witnesses contradict each other on technical details about network protocols and server logs. Digital forensics gets dissected line by line. One expert spends an entire afternoon explaining how malware propagates through infected systems. Another disputes every conclusion. The Swedish court delivers a split verdict. Guilty of hacking into Logica systems and accessing confidential government data. The evidence showed unauthorized access to servers containing tax records for thousands of Swedish citizens. Insufficient evidence on the Nordea bank charges. That count gets dismissed for lack of proof tying him directly to the intrusion attempt. The sentence is 2 years in prison, later reduced to 1 year on appeal. Importantly, the judgment acknowledges his computer was compromised by external actors at certain points. The forensic analysis found malware, but the court rules he still bears responsibility for the government data breach. The logic is murky. Either he did it or he didn't, but the court seems to split the difference. Maybe he did it. Maybe someone used his equipment. Either way, he's culpable. Either way, he goes to prison. As he begins serving time in a Swedish prison, another country is preparing their own case. In the stark white hallways of Swedish corrections facilities, Gottfrid probably knows what's coming. You can't hack Denmark's police databases and expect them to forget about it. Denmark has been investigating a devastating hack of their own. In 2012, someone breached CSC, a major IT contractor managing Danish police databases and social security systems. The intrusion stole personal identification numbers for millions of Danish citizens, accessed sensitive law enforcement records. It's one of the worst cybersecurity breaches in Scandinavian history. Danish investigators traced chat logs and digital fingerprints to a familiar alias, Anna Carter. In late 2013, as Gottfrid finishes his Swedish sentence, Denmark requests extradition. He's immediately transferred to Copenhagen and placed in solitary confinement. The Danish trial in October 2014 is intense and unforgiving. prosecutors present evidence of a 6-month intrusion into CSC's mainframes. Chat logs showing someone using the Anacata handle coordinating the breach. Stolen data found on equipment linked to Gottfrid. His defense doubles down on the evil twin theory. The real person behind those IRC chat handles wasn't Gottfrid at all. Someone else used his alias and equipment to commit the crimes. His co-defendant, a 21-year-old Danish hacker, testifies he met the true Anacata online, and it wasn't Svartholm. It's a bold strategy, claiming someone else impersonated you online to commit crimes using your equipment. The jury doesn't buy it. The forensic evidence is overwhelming. Stolen CSC data on his drives, access patterns matching his known equipment, chat logs using his distinctive phrasing. Even the defense's alternate suspect doesn't quite add up. October 27, 2014. The guilty verdict arrives. The sentence is crushing. 3.5 years in prison. The harshest hacking sentence in Danish history at that point. His co-defendant, portrayed as a minor accomplice, receives a lenient sentence and walks free with time served. Gottfrid, hearing the verdict, shows no emotion. 3 years of running, 2 trials, multiple convictions. It's drained the fight from his face. He serves his time in a Danish prison. The conditions are better than Swedish facilities, which isn't saying much. He's allowed limited computer access for educational purposes, though heavily monitored. Other inmates mostly leave him alone once they figure out who he is. September 2015. Gottfrid walks out of a Danish prison, thin and hardened. Denmark attempts to deport him immediately, but Swedish police rearrest him on the prison steps for a final 1-month sentence. Bureaucratic leftovers from the hacking convictions. By December 2015, all debts are paid. He's finally free. His mother meets him at the gates, telling reporters he just wants to sit by a keyboard again after 3 years away from one. There are photos from that day. He looks older than 30. The beard is gone. The smirk is gone. What remains is someone who lived the complete hacker narrative. Creation, glory, exile, conviction, imprisonment, release. And the Pirate Bay? Still online, still serving torrents from servers hosted in locations authorities can't easily reach. Maintained by anonymous administrators and true believers who never met the founders. The site has outlived multiple raids, dozens of domain seizures, and the imprisonment of all 3 founders. It's not as dominant as it once was. Streaming services changed the landscape. Netflix and Spotify made piracy less necessary for many people. File sharing fragmented across a dozen different platforms. But type the URL and you'll find it, or one of countless proxy mirrors still sailing. The Pirate Bay proved a brutal lesson to anyone trying to control information flow in the internet age. You can't kill what has no center. You can arrest the founders, seize the servers, pass new laws. And the thing persists because it was never really about the servers or the founders. It was about an idea that enough people believed in. Information wants to be free, not as a slogan, as an engineering reality. Gottfrid Svartholm built something that embodied that principle so completely that it survived his own imprisonment. Whether he committed those later hacking crimes remains disputed. The malware on his laptop was real. The compromised systems were real. Whether he was the puppet or the puppeteer depends on who you ask. What's not disputed is that a 19-year-old with a bedroom server and a conviction that information should flow freely built something that governments and corporations couldn't destroy even when they threw everything at it. Armed officers, multiple trials, international extradition, 3.5 years in prison, and the site still loads. That's not a victory exactly. Gottfrid lost years of his life. His friends went to prison. The legal bills were ruinous. But it's not a defeat either, because the thing they built proved that in the age of decentralized networks, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. You can punish the people who let it out. You can make examples of them. You can ruin their lives. But the genie stays out. And somewhere tonight, someone is downloading a torrent through a site maintained by people who never met its founders. The pirate ship logo still fires cannonballs at Hollywood. The search bar still works. The files still flow. The empire they said would die in 72 hours is entering its third decade. If you'd like another story to drift off to next time, there are more waiting for you right here. Sleep.